The Black Plague, Spanish flu, and COVID-19. Let's talk about the origin of these three global pandemics of history. The Black Plague ravaged Europe in the 14th century. It began in either Central Asia or East Asia. The rumor in Europe was that the populations in China and India had been decimated by disease. When Italian trade ships returning from the east landed in Sicily, nearly everyone on board was sick. Even though the ships with diseased crew were turned away by the ports, the damage had already been done. The Black Plague made its way all across Europe, killing between 50 and 70 million people, over 1/3 of the population. The Spanish flu had its greatest effect in Spain, hence the name, but is thought to probably have originated from a small farm in Kansas. The farm, of course, was filled with dirty animals who interacted with the farm population constantly. More on that later. Because of the occurrence of World War I throughout the 1918 epidemic, the flu in Kansas was spread all over Europe as American soldiers traveled to France, Germany, Britain, etc. The Spanish flu killed an estimated 50 to 100 million people, or 10 to 20% of the world at that time. The 2019-2020 coronavirus pandemic is thought to have started in Wuhan, China. There is a big seafood and foreign exotic animal market in Wuhan. Here animals are brought in from all over the world and sold as a delicacy. The market is not a very clean place, and the way that the animals are stored is not ideal. Cages are stacked upon each other, so fluids from one animal can easily pass to another. It is thought that the coronavirus we are experiencing today traveled to us through several hosts. Whether it was a bat, or a snake, or a pangolin hasn't been determined. There is evidence for many combinations of animals. Either way, the virus made its way to us after one animal gave it to another, and that animal was consumed by a human. With the modern world the way it is, once the virus is given to a person, over time it will make its way all around the world. This happened at the very end of 2019. Now in April of 2020, coronavirus has made its way to most of the world and infected many populations. The facts, stats, and updates change daily. As of right now, there are a confirmed 85,400 deaths worldwide, a number that will change by the time this voiceover is set to video. So a common link in the origin of all three diseases is the interaction with animals. All three diseases came from animals and somehow made their way into human society. All the animals would have been in dirty environments, not fit for people to be interacting with them in that environment. How is each disease spread? The Black Death is thought to have been carried by fleas. A common theory is that the fleas were transported by rats. It was commonplace for ships to be infested with rats, as it was a cold and damp environment. Even if just one rat escaped a ship, the disease was out. Europeans rightly considered the plague unstoppable. Through economic activity in the Middle Ages, the plague made its way along trade routes and reached nearly every settlement in Europe. All it took was physical contact with another person to spread the illness. It is even thought that eventually the plague became airborne. Entire villages were wiped out. There was essentially nothing that could be done to stop the spread. The hygiene of 14th century Europe was abominable. That's what allowed the spread to be so effective. People lived amongst animals who were greatly killed off by the plague as well. People didn't wash their hands or bathe nearly at all. Their food wasn't clean. In fact, the mass killing of livestock actually led to a wool and food shortage across Europe. The Black Plague affected nearly everyone. Almost no one could come in contact with it and survive. In fact, there were cases of people being infected and dying without one symptom. The Spanish flu was also spread by contact with a sick person. If they coughed or sneezed nearby, you were in danger of breathing it in. The big spreader of the Spanish flu was World War I. Not only was there the normal global trade, much more in 1918 than it had been in the 14th century, but this economic activity was bolstered by the war. The war itself also generated more travel. Spanish flu affected all demographics, rather than just the usual old, young, and others with compromised immune systems. COVID-19 has spread so quickly to so many people in so little time. The modern world is so interconnected. It is not a surprise at all that it could travel from China to the rest of the world in a couple of months, even with lockdowns and quarantines all over. Though it is being determined for sure, the coronavirus is believed to be spread through the intake of small droplets from someone infected, such as when they cough, sneeze, or even just talk. You could come in contact with these droplets on a surface. Coronavirus is not airborne, but the droplets can be. COVID-19 is thought to mostly target those with a compromised immune system, like the young and old, but also can take perfectly healthy people too. What was done to prevent the spread? In the 14th century, the plague doctors knew next to nothing about the science of disease. They did all kinds of terrible, ineffective things to sick people, such as bloodletting, giving them potions, and all kinds of things that only harmed people. The most common defense can be summed up with this: "Begone, demon!" During the Spanish flu epidemic, in Spain, officials encouraged the entire population to wear cloth masks. They had a much better scientific knowledge at this point. They isolated sick people and suspended school and other activities to limit person-to-person contact. By 1920, scientists had even come up with an immunization for the flu. This is our hope for coronavirus. Given enough time, probably a few years, there will hopefully be a vaccine for COVID-19. It will have come in contact with everyone and just be a part of everyday life, like a common cold or the flu. Prevention of the spread includes isolation and quarantine, as well as social distancing, the idea of staying 6 or more feet away from everyone except the people who live in your same house. At this point, it would be wise, and the very opposite of selfish, to simply just not come in contact with anyone at all. Many places have locked down completely. People can't even go outside. The hope is that we can flatten the curve of the disease. There reaches a point where the healthcare systems are too overwhelmed to treat everyone. Though we are already seeing that in many places, we hope to limit the spread enough that the healthcare system can continue to operate at all. So these diseases are very similar. Their origin, spread, and what it would take to prevent or slow the spread are all very similar. We are very fortunate to live when we have sufficient scientific knowledge. Spread of disease is just a part of life and history we all have to deal with. Ultimately, there isn't much that can be done. Nothing can stop a disease, but actions can slow its spread and protect individuals. Karl Marx once said, "History repeats itself, first as tragedy, second as farce." We need to treat the present situation seriously. Everyone needs to do their part to protect themselves and each other.